You know, when this season first started, I did not think these traitors were going to hate each other this much. Like, obviously, I knew there were going to be fights and drama and all that stuff, but this is just on a whole nother level. Obviously, we have a lot to talk about today, but before we get into all that, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button below if you have not already. We're going to be here talking about the traitors all season long, and I can tell it's going to be one hell of a ride, and you don't want to miss out. Now, let's begin. So this episode opens up with a very awkward, intense meeting between these traitors. Obviously, they are fresh off of Rob just completely dismantling them and sending Bob the drag queen out. So he's already going to be in trouble walking into this episode, but he's trying his best to save face and doing all this apologizing and stuff. But it does seem like it is too late for all that. Unfortunately, that trust has already been shattered, and I don't know if Boston Rob is ever really going to be able to build his reputation back up with these ladies. You know, Rob is stating that he felt threatened by Bob the drag queen, and that's why he got him out the game. But I think Carolyn and Danielle are smart enough to realize the real reason why he wanted Bob out, which is his ego. We have seen Rob play these games for years now, really decades, and we know that he likes to be in the lead. He likes to be the one in charge. So I think when he saw the way that Bob the drag queen was able to get the attention and command the room, he may have gotten a little bit jealous and wanted that position for himself. And Carolyn agrees. I mean, she pretty much calls this out exactly.
I don't even think that Bob said Rob's name. He didn't. Rob wants to be the one calling the shots, and Bob the drag queen had all of the people following him, and that is what Rob is used to. This was an ego thing.
So overall, the mood is just very awkward in there, and it gets even worse as they can't really agree on who to murder. Nobody here is really on the same page for real, but as we end up seeing, Rob does get his way here because they end up deciding to murder Robyn, which was Rob's first choice. Now, the show didn't really fully explain why Robyn was the pick here, and I didn't really understand the strategic reasoning behind it either, especially if she wasn't one of the main faithfuls that's out there calling the shots or anything. Maybe it was just to seem as random as possible, to just confuse as many people as possible, and if that's the case, then mission accomplished, because I'm confused by this choice, and even I know who the traitors are, so there's that. Speaking of which, these have to be some of the least put together traitors of all time, right? Like, I've only seen these US versions. I haven't seen any of the international seasons. So if there are traitors that are like even more chaotic than this, please let me know. Because so far, these three are just an absolute mess. We have Rob, who wants to work with Carolyn, who wants to work with Danielle, who wants to take out Carolyn, who wants to take out Rob. I think I got that right. By far the most confusing part of this whole traitor hate triangle to me is the fact that Danielle would rather take out Carolyn before she takes out Rob. Like, that part just makes no sense to me. I can't seem to wrap my head around it. So much gets cut out of this show, so maybe there's some more underlying beef between these two ladies that we're not really being shown. But this isn't even the craziest part of this episode. That we're going to get to later. Meanwhile, around the castle, we're going to hear Boston Rob's name continue to be brought up. And at this point, it should be fairly obvious that he's one of the traitors, right? I mean, he pretty much snitched on himself when he snitched on Bob. So now people are starting to talk about Boston Rob more, mainly people like Wes. And then we get to this scene, which I don't know if this was done strategically or what, but that Lord Ivar guy decides to go up to Boston Rob and just completely tell him everything open and honest about all the stuff people have been saying about him, mainly Wes. He definitely throws Wes under the bus here too. Now, I don't think Lord Ivar was intending on being this messy when he did all this, but he totally was anyway. And now there's this like weird underlying tension between Wes and Boston Rob. I feel like they're setting us up for these two to come after each other at some point in the show, so I'm just gonna wait for that. Next, it's time for these players to go off to their next mission, but before they do, on their way to the mission in the Sprinter van, we're gonna hear Rob snitch on himself just one more time. See, if you really pay attention, these traitors be snitching on themselves all the freaking time. You just gotta know what to really look for. For example, a few episodes ago, Bob the drag queen accidentally snitched on himself to Ciara when they were doing the mission, and he told her not to grab a shield and assured her that the traitors were not going to murder her. Like, sounding that confident is definitely a red flag, and now Boston Rob is about to do the same damn thing. Boston Rob is in the car talking to Nikki, and at this point most people are thinking that Nikki is a traitor, but we hear Boston Rob let her know very matter-of-factly that he's so sure that she's a faithful.
I heard my name came back up.
You're a faithful. I believe you're a faithful.
Now, he does catch himself immediately and tries to cover it up real quick, but that subtle confidence there should be a red flag to anybody who's really paying attention. Now, on to the mission itself. I did really like how this mission was set up because, of course, there were shields in play, which is where the stakes are brought in. But there's also this opportunity here to take away safety from somebody else, which is always petty fun for us, the audience. But really, y'all, I think literally everybody was shocked to see what's about to happen next. We see Traitor Danielle get a question right, which is gonna, give her the opportunity to save herself and give herself immunity, just like everybody else had done. But instead of, being chill and laying low and not making any waves, she decides to bring all the attention to herself instead by deciding to save Dorinda and not her. Danielle seems to think here that not going for safety is gonna make her look more faithful, but I just don't know about all that, sis. Especially since this is her second time doing something like this. Like, at a certain point, people are gonna start keeping count and keeping notice. Again, feeling super safe is classic traitor behavior, and she even gets called out on this right there on the spot. But y'all, the worst is still yet to come because Danielle's performance throughout this entire game was honestly a hot mess. Like, I have no notes. She then steals the immunity from her ally Derek, only to start feeling bad and give it right back to him a few moments later. Like, I just don't know what is going on here. I was shocked, honey. I was in tears almost.
I was shocked, honey. I was in tears almost.
There was just no reason for any of this. Not the savior complex or the fake crying or all the overthinking. Like, she did not have to participate in this challenge at all whatsoever. But believe it or not, as much as it pains me to say it, it's about to get even worse. So we've already established that Danielle wants to get her fellow traitor Carolyn out for whatever reason she has. So she's gonna start planting seeds that Carolyn could be a traitor. And by planting seeds, she means blatantly pushing her name just flat outright with zero evidence to back it up whatsoever.
And I think a traitor is a female, and no one is saying her name. And it's Carolyn.
It's like she's literally just making the same mistake that Boston Rob just made. But even though that's the case, despite all of their flaws, for whatever reason, going into the round table, it's still down to Nikki versus Ciara as the prime suspects. Now, Boston Rob's name is brought up during this round table. He was confronted by Lord Ivar and Bob H a little bit, but he's able to defend himself decent enough here, even though there were some holes in some of the stories he was telling. So the conversation is then moved on to the ladies. Again, we are down to Nikki versus Ciara because that coffin curse thing just will not leave them alone, and things do get even a little heated between these ladies for a hot second. But when the votes are read, we see that Nikki gets almost every single vote, leaving the faithfuls to take one more L. Yikes. Now, I do want to go ahead and give Boston Rob a bit of a shout out because he did do kind of a sly, sneaky move with his vote when he threw Chrishell under the bus. He said that Chrishell was the one who convinced him to vote for Nikki, so that could set her up for failure down the line and leave room for people to think she's a traitor, which was nice, subtle work. So we'll just have to see if that ends up culminating into anything later on. So that's all I have for today. It looks like in the next episode, we're going to be seeing even more fights between the traitors, so that should be fun. Carolyn has been tipped off about Danielle coming after her, so that is a fight that I am ready to see. That's what I've been waiting for. Of course, I want to know, what did you all think of the gameplay in this episode? And what are some of your predictions for the next one? Let me know in the comments below. Judging by the way things are going right now, I would not be surprised at all if a traitor went home next, because it looks like they are all about to crash out. Of course, I'll be back here next week to recap the next episode with you all. But until then, bye.